Hi, and welcome to Storytime with David Booker. Appreciate being here. Today we're continuing on with Sheriff in a Small Town. This is book 4, Home Again. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to be reading Family today. So let's get right into that one. Joe was working on replacing the muffler with a truck. His cousin was changing the tire and checking the U-joint. As they worked, they discussed the future. Joe, don't think I don't appreciate all you've done for me. I do, really. It's just that we're too busy for a one-man shop. You go off and do your deputy stuff and get to drive around all day, be a big man. Well, I'm left here slogging away in the dirt and grime. Now folks are coming in for getting their trucks all done up with the gadgets like you did with Rocky's truck, and I don't have a clue how to do it. Joe tightened the last bolt and lowered the truck. Look, I know it's been busy. This is the time of year it usually is, but a couple of months things slow down and you'll be begging for work. You got to share the profits as well as a steady paycheck. I can't do more than that. So if you want to quit, say so, and I'll hand in my resignation as deputy. Jacob looked disgruntled. He liked the money he was earning. Nobody could give him as much as he was getting here. It was all the work that was putting him off. Joe worked twice as hard as he was willing to because it was Joe's garage. Joe had offered him a partnership, but Jacob had immediately turned it down. Partnership meant more work, since he'd be responsible for doing the paperwork when Joe was gone. Joe was beginning to understand what was going on. His cousin was certainly not incompetent. He could do anything he wanted to once he truly wanted to do it. When he and Joe worked together, he'd at least attempt to keep up. On his own, he slowed down as much as he could get away with. Besides, he felt that Joe was just joyriding around town and playing all day. He called Talbot to see if his cousin could do a ride along. Talbot was amenable and arranged for Joe's cousin to arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning. When he heard how early the day started, he began to lose interest before he even started. Well, what time do we get off? Joe shrugged. It depends on what happened during the day. Sometimes we're there till, 9 at night. Sometimes if things are really busy, we don't get done till 11. But if it's slow, I sometimes get off early until it takes the rest of the day. Like any time I take the whole day alone, we're always busy. Anyway, you'd better get going and get a good night's rest. Oh, don't be late. Talbot's a great guy, but he's a sheriff and you have to respect that. To Talbot's surprise, Jacob was at the courthouse before him. He had expected him to be in after, 7 from the way Joe was talking. Talbot opened up and gave him the grand tour. After a bit of tidying up and sorting the faxes, they went out on a first run. Talbot gave him a brick and a holster to let him get the feeling of being on duty. It was amusing to see Jacob's posture change once the belt was fastened. The man practically strutted. Sitting in the front seat, Jacob settled back and enjoyed the ride. I was looking everywhere at once, keeping an eye out for anything. All of a sudden, he turned and parked near the co-op. Jacob couldn't see why they had stopped. Talbot rushed out and knelt by a child with their bike laying next to them. He called to Jacob, "Hey, bring the first aid kit out of the glove box and the toolbox out of the trunk." The boy had fallen off his bike when his front wheel had come loose. The wheel was a couple of yards off and leant against a bench. Talbot patched up the skinned knee and had Jacob fix up the bike. Both bike and child repaired, they said goodbye and got back on the round. Jacob was a bit confused. Well, that ain't part of the job, is it? Thought all you did was look for robbers and stuff. Joe pointed to the motto on the door panel. Says to serve and protect. That means we do what we have to and what we can whenever it's needed. They saw Mrs. Perkins struggling to get down the sidewalk with her collapsible cart. The wheels were old and rusted, and she was struggling just to get it rolling. Talbot was already pulling over when Jacob offered to fix the cart. Go ahead, and put her under basket in the back of the car. We'll run her home. She looks fair beat. From the toolbox, Jacob found a wire brush and a can of WD-40. Cleaned and oiled the cart, and then gently put her in the cart in the back seat. Talbot didn't need directions. He knew where almost everyone lived who came into town regular. Once at her house, he took up the cart to her door and said goodbye. She had him wait while she brought out a couple of small pies. I did some baking yesterday. These will go good with your lunch. Talbot thanked her and looked greedily at the pies. On the road again, Talbot slowed down after half a block, driving at walking speed to Jacob's consternation. Talbot was following a man that walked as if they was fairly old, but Talbot was positive it was just a disguise. Gray hair had a little too much silver, and the black back was too broad. Parking decided to follow on foot. Jacob followed farther behind. He didn't see what Talbot was seeing, but was becoming tense. The man went into the bank, and Talbot followed, keeping out of the man's line of sight. Jacob continued following, but remained outside. If there was anything serious going to happen, he felt it best to stay clear. Inside, the man was writing on a piece of paper. Finished, he looked around the bank. Talbot was partially hidden by a column, but keeping an eye on his quarry. The man went to Tom and handed him a note. Tom read it and glanced cautiously over towards Talbot. Nodding slightly, he indicated that the man was robbing the bank. Talbot sped over and grabbed the man's arm. The man swung round and Talbot's hand loosened its hold. The man raced to the door with Talbot in hot pursuit. The wig dropped off as he neared the door, revealing a young man in his 20s. Bursting outside, he ran right into Jacob. Recognizing the code, he enveloped the man in a bear hug. Talbot arrived in seconds and put the cuffs on him. Placing the man in the cell to wait for pickup, Talbot filled out the paper, giving Jacob credit for the capture. Lunch was a joyous affair at the diner, with Talbot ordering a large meal for both of them. You've earned a good lunch. Your quick reaction kept everyone safe and captured the wanted criminal. Jacob leaned back in a warm glow. He looked over at the clock on the wall and realized it was only 11. It's not even noon yet. You've been busy, so busy that I figured it was closer to 2. Talbot laughed. Sometimes it feels like that. In fact, most days do. Most days we don't even look at a clock, so that when the end of the day comes, we've been so busy it's always a surprise. Staying in silence while Jacob considered the talk he had had with Joe earlier. He thought that Joe's job as deputy was a cinch in a small town like this. It wasn't just the calls that came in that meant the police work. That was a normal part of the job, but all the extras of helping people out, keeping a keen eye on what was going on around them, recognizing times when there was trouble. There's so much more to the job than Jacob thought. Made him feel a little upset with himself for not doing his share in the garage. Finishing quickly, he asked if he'd go over and talk to Joe for a second. Talbot told him to meet him up at the courthouse in an hour. Joe's working on replacing a headlight bulb and working with the smooth Swiss. Joe, let's start that again. Joe was working on replacing a headlight bulb and working with a smooth, swift expertise of experience. The work was done in less than a minute. Jacob considered he would have taken about 5. Joe looked up and saw Jacob looking pensive. Grinning, he asked about his day so far. What's up? Slow day? Nah, I've been pretty busy. Jacob sat on the edge of a case of oil. Joe, I had a few hours of your job, and I'm already more bush than I ever was working here. I thought the job was so laid back and easy. You do more work in the morning than most folks do in the whole day. I realized that the problem's me. You work hard and fast because you're invested in this place and in this town. Now, I've been sitting on the outside and just looking in. I don't have the connection to things you do. Joe leant against the car and listened. He had a feeling Jacob was definitely thinking about moving on. Well, if that was it, so be it. Talbot could find another deputy. He'd have to go back to busting his butt here at the shop and work to find another helper eventually. So, what plans have you made? I've been staying in the Catlin place, renting it. The rent's cheap because the place is old and hasn't been maintained very well. I'm going to make an offer to buy it. You give me enough I can afford to. I can take the time to make it really nice and comfortable. Hell, who knows? Maybe I'll find someone here I can take a shine to. Hell, if they go for you, they can't be all that picky. Both men grinned. It was a long-standing joke between them. Well, I take it then you're ready to take back over again? In answer, Jacob stripped off the gun belt and radio, handing them over. Slipping onto a pair of overalls, he checked on the list of work. Joe came over and slapped him on the back. Well, I'd better get back to the courthouse. Turning back at the door, he looked quizzically at Jacob. You sure you don't want to finish the day? Afternoons when things really get going. Jacob pulled the spanner off the rack. think I'll stay here then. Being a deputy is too much work. Pulling an engine is a heck of a lot easier. All right, that's it for today. The next one was supposed to be more family. We did that one on Tuesday. So yeah, I screwed up. So let's see what well, I'm reading this off the screen. So we're going to go down and see what the next chapter is. And because I don't remember. Of course, I could just look it up in the book, which I now have, thank goodness. Give me a few seconds here. A long ass chapter that we read Tuesday, wasn't it? There we go. Good days. That's the next one. So that's just kind of what's going on around town. So I appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoyed that chapter. Hope you'll look forward to seeing or listening in on Good Days. That's kind of a fun one anyway. So I enjoy writing this book a lot. So that's it for today. Be good and be good to yourself. I hope to see you again on Tuesday of next week. So see you then. Bye. You know, I am really having a hard time doing things with this couch here.